Hi, my name is Greg Duggan. I own a company called First Point Safety Training, and today we're doing a fire warden training course. This is particularly important for you guys because every person who works in a nursing home environment is tasked with being a fire warden. The contents of the course itself is the legislation, the law. Its main purpose there is to protect you guys coming into work, and it's to protect the residents and of course visitors who come into your premises as well. We're also going to cover the duties of fire wardens and senior fire wardens. Evacuation techniques, they would be varied with a building like yours because of the dependency levels involved. We'll cover the demonstrations and examples of your evacuation equipment, and of course in nursing homes that could be anything ranging from wheelchairs to ski sheets to evac pads, shower chairs, commodes. Fire procedures for your premises, and of course in turn your alarm system. The alarm systems, and this is something to always keep in mind, they're like defibrillators. There's so many different types, but essentially they all do the same thing. The important thing is to read the information on your alarm system, especially if it's an addressable alarm system, which will give you a specific address and it'll give you the cause or the trigger device, i.e. whether it's a smoke detector, heat detector, a manual call point has been activated. And this is all information you need to have before you go and investigate, to make a thorough or conduct a thorough investigation to see if there is indeed a problem. And majority of the time when an alarm is activated, it's a false alarm. But your response every time the alarm goes off is that it's the real deal. And you need to verify that's the case. The fire register itself, the kind of information you need to have included in it. And this is a book that needs to be evacuated. It's as important as a person to be evacuated, because it has all the details of who services your extinguishers, your alarms, your emergency lights, all those kind of checks and balances. A PEEP folder may also be kept inside the fire register, and visitor sign-in book, very, very important. The visitor, my issue usually is people may sign in but they may not sign out. We need to have as much information as possible for the emergency services on their arrival about who's in the building and where are they located potentially. And emergency boxes, not every nursing home would have this, but it can be a good idea to have. It's a box kept near the alarm system or in a reception area, and it would usually include things like high-vis vests, foil blankets for the residents if we needed to totally evacuate them. Then you could have things like notepads, pens, checklists, list of residents, list of staff members, torches, very important, and of course you could have basically two-way radios or phones, some form of a communication between staff members. It can also double up as a missing persons kit as well in the eventuality that could happen. Then we'll be talking about contacting emergency services, the kind of information you need to have ready for them, and the uses and types of firefighting equipment. I can't stress this enough. The extinguishers are there, the fire blankets and so on, some cases ANSA systems in the kitchen and so forth. What's important to understand is that fire wardens need to know what extinguishers do, what their uses are and so on. But because of the nature of your job, evacuation will always be primary to firefighting. Firefighting is secondary. If you go into a room, you have a resident that you're easily able to evacuate, you do that first. If you go into a room and there's a fire impeding you from evacuating that resident, now you want to know how to use an extinguisher. But evacuation is primary and firefighting is secondary. And the other important thing to understand is that when you're dealing with fire extinguishers, picking the wrong one for the wrong job can make the situation worse very quickly. And sometimes all you need to know is closing windows and doors is a form of firefighting. It's cutting off oxygen supplies, delaying the spread of the fire until the emergency services are there. And generally, average response times, depending on your location, could range from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. Your buildings have fire doors. Minimum resistance for fire doors throughout buildings can be half an hour. They can even be up to an hour in kitchens and laundries, in high-risk rooms like boiler houses and places like that. So each door that's closed between you, the residents, and the fire is buying you 30 minutes time, and that's all you need to keep in mind. That's why evacuation may not necessarily mean taking everybody from inside to outside. You can be using the building for protection and moving people away from the affected area until the emergency services arrive and they take care of business. And the actual fire procedures will be determined mainly by the number of staff who are able to implement that. So for instance, there's going to be a huge difference between day and night shift. If you have 4 people on the night shift, and that's 3 carers and 1 nurse, there's only so much they can do. They deal with what's considered the micro. So if you're on a day shift where you could have 15 approximately people, they can concentrate on evacuating the building essentially, and that's if the need arose, of course. But on the night shift, when there's only 4 on, you can only concentrate on the compartment, the section that's actually affected by the fire itself. So it's having a plan in place or a procedure to follow to keep it as clear and as succinct as possible. On a night shift, there's only 4 people on, but it will be the nurse in charge, the nurse who's on the night shift or the nurse on duty, who would be the senior fire warden. Everything begins at the alarm panel. So the alarm activates, everyone makes their way to the alarm panel. So let's start with the night shift because that's a worst case scenario. Now, unfortunately, that video you just watched is a good example of how quickly out of control things can get. But at the initial stages of a fire, this is where extinguishers come into their own. Think of them though as band-aids for little cuts. They're only designed for the early stages or at the start of a fire when they're controllable, essentially. But if you want to tackle a fire, you need to understand how a fire works, and that's what's known as the fire triangle or the chemistry of fire. To start a fire, you need 3 things. You need fuel, you need oxygen, and you need an ignition source. The ignition source is the important part there because that's where you guys can prevent the fire from occurring in the first place. You can have all the fuel in the world, all the oxygen, but if you don't have that ignition source, the 3 things need to come together in order to create a fire. So the Ansel system is essentially a wall-mounted extinguisher, and you see it in kitchens where it's this chrome box up on the wall and it has a trigger on it. There's a handle underneath here, which is what you can use to actually activate it manually. There's little glass bulbs on either side. When you pull out the bell, turn it, you snap the glass bulbs and the product comes out of the nozzles, which are already built into the hood itself. The hood will have these nozzles pointing down and they'll have nozzles pointing up into the actual vent itself. The idea and following your instructions, going through your fire procedures, participating in drills, following the instruction of your senior fire warden, all these things coming together, and the teamwork element of everything. You're all the team, you're all the fire wardens, but you need a captain to that team as well. And you got to work together and participate, and this can even come down to making sure that the ski sheets are sited correctly on the beds. This video is instruction. It's just a guideline to help you do what you need to do. My email is going to come up at the end. Like I said at the start of the video, feel free to email me with any queries you have. Good luck and thanks for listening.